Welcome, everybody, to our large class playbook session today. Welcome to the folks in the room, and welcome to a lot of folks in our Zoom room. Thank you for being here. I want to introduce our colleague, Ben Sawyer, in the Department of History, who's going to, from what I can tell, marry his experience as a stand-up comedian and how that has influenced your work in the classroom with students. So everybody, please join me in welcoming Ben Sawyer.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm Ben Sawyer. I teach in the Department of History, and I've been doing stand-up comedy for 13 years now. I went back. I mean, I've taken time off. Everybody took time off for COVID. Well, not everybody took time off for COVID, but a lot of people did. I also took a year off for cancer. Woo, give it up for not having cancer anymore. I'm a big fan of that. But I've been back, and but overall, first time I really went up was 2012 in LA, and I've loved it ever since. And I want to share a little bit about this, and I also apologize. You know, when you're doing a set, you don't like to take notes on stage, but also you usually run through anything you say in a comedy show about 100 times on an open mic before you'd ever say it in front of people who paid. So I didn't have that opportunity. So I'm going to use some notes here.
We didn't pay either.
Huh?
We didn't pay either.
But you will. You will, don't worry. So I started trying my hand at comedy. It grew out of the fact that when I was living in Russia, I just got working in archives all day, and I got bored. I started wanting to write a sitcom. And I started writing a sitcom pilot, but I didn't know how to do that. And so I read books, and it all said you should start with stand-up comedy. So I went into it, and I thought stand-up would be great because, let's face it, I talk in front of people all the time. Even at that point, I've been a graduate assistant at Michigan State for 3 years, taught my own classes for 2 years. My students thought I was very funny. And I think that had a lot to do with relative expectations. Because it turns out that I was actually just Professor Funny. Which, it's an asterisk. The word professor before that is like an asterisk that comes before the word. It's right up there with Professor Hot. I don't know, Country Rich. Anyway, so it's a modifier. And that was a pretty relative evaluation. So when I first started doing comedy, I walked on stage thinking, I've got. And the first thing I learned, you guys, okay, we get it. Okay, there we go. All right, cool. So anyway, back at it. That was great. Just felt good to know that maybe the rapture was coming, and now we've got some more time for it again. Anyway, so what I learned is that immediately it made me think about the fact that speaking is not speaking, and that sometimes the habits that we learn as teachers in the classroom aren't that effective with communicating. And overall, I had factored in a couple of things. First of all, as I said, relative. Like instead of comparing me to Ralphie May and Dave Chappelle, they were actually comparing me to like professors who had always just been professors. And if you think about our field, it's like a totally different game, like speaking as a professor, right? Comedy audiences are full of people who pay $100 to get in and show up early. College classrooms are full of people who pay $1,000 to get in and then try not to come, and you have to coerce them. So it's a very different game, right? Like nobody goes on tour in this field. Like, and if we do, I mean, think about this. If we go on tour, we pay $1,000 to go somewhere else and speak. Like, that's how good we are. We have to pay our way in. Like, academic conferences are just music festivals that's only the musicians buying tickets and nobody else shows up. So it kind of changes the table, right? Oh, man over here, I appreciate that.
Right. We get it. We get it.
All right, look, I'm with you. All right, I'm not on tour. You see what I'm doing. Look, just to be relative, like I got better at stand-up comedy, but I'm still not great at it. In fact, I'll tell you what I told my students. One semester, I was the faculty advisor to the stand-up comedy club. They wanted to start it, right? And when I went in to meet with them, I said to them, look, I have been doing this longer than you, all right? But you need to look at me like your college football coach or your high school football coach, all right? I've been doing this a long time. I probably know more than you, but if I was actually good at this, I wouldn't still be at this school. So I know this better. And today, what I want to do is I want to try to explain why I think I got better at it, what helped me unlearning a lot of the things that I had learned as a teacher, and why I think this might be useful to you. And I hope I can share some tips that I learned without making you stare down the barrel of the reality that you might not actually be talented so that it's harder to sleep. Before I go on to speak about teaching, which is what I actually care about more than any of this, I want to say that I think that teaching and stand-up share one important thing, and that is I don't think you can actually teach somebody how to do them. There's not one way, and they have to be something that comes from who you are. And I think the idea that we can teach someone how to teach becomes a problem because teaching to me isn't necessarily one thing. And I'll talk more about that in a second. It has to be something that's grounded in you. If you try to do somebody's act, you're not going to pull it off. So you got to figure out what yours is. And I also should say now that I do believe that there's variations on it. And I want to say this. I am going to speak very confidently about what I say today because I believe in the gospel I'm about to preach. But I want to make clear to anybody listening, I am not saying that I'm doing it the only right way or that anybody else is doing it wrong. I'm going to speak confidently so I can convey what I think has been important to me, because I don't think you can teach somebody how to teach, but I do think you can learn how to be better at it. And that comes from breaking down your assumptions and learning. And that's what I want to share today. Because honestly, the thing about comedy is when you look at an audience, you realize some things that you wouldn't notice otherwise. Now, here's what's weird about the job that we do. All right, so you teach economics, right? The economics of the healthcare industry. What's your name, ma'am?
More.
Norm?
Yeah.
And you teach the economics of the healthcare industry?
Yeah, very funny.
So do you just go ahead and fail like 30% of them? Like you won't do any good? Like, how do you handle that?
Oh, what's specific? Like, right now I'm teaching principles of economics, so I'm not really teaching economics of healthcare.
Okay,
For principles, yes, a third.
so you're teaching principles of healthcare to how many students?
Economics.
Economics, sorry.
To how many? Like, I have a class of 85 now.
85. How are they doing with it?
Well, I haven't tested them yet, so
So
we'll
we'll find
know in
out,
2
huh?
weeks. We'll find out in a month.
And you teach music? What do you teach?
Music history.
Music history?
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's going great.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
You teach all of it in one semester?
No, well, we pick and choose
Oh,
sections.
do you really? So you're biased. You're one of those, huh?
No, we try to give them a survey of a range of things, and then they get a broken down one where we go Middle Ages to Baroque and then classical to present day if we get there.
Do you have anybody who teaches in your department who's just like rap's not music, so they don't teach about it? Do you have that one? Or they just go classical, just a bunch of strings? Do you have?
No, we have some.
I just love the idea of a huge class where a guy walks in and it's just a hipster.
Yeah.
And he goes, Led Zeppelin's not music, let's talk about the Beatles. And that's, you have to take that on the class?
No, are you asking if the students do that or?
No, do you ever, like, I'm sorry.
No.
I have a lot of caricatures in my mind that would be hilarious.
Yes, of course, yeah. I mean, sometimes I will do that just to be facetious and get them to talk about what I want them to actually talk about and go, I think this sucks.
Oh, so you get them riled up a little bit, huh?
And then see if they all defend it or if they just, go, oh yeah, you're right, you're the professor or something. And then I go, ooh, that's gross.
It's
Stop.
terrible. It's a terrible appeal to authority. And man, what do you teach?
I teach in the College of Education where we do believe that you can teach people how to teach.
You think so?
I mean, the whole college committed to it.
I know. Now look, here's my thing. I went to community college for 3 years, never got my 2-year degree. And by the time I transferred over, I'm a failed high school teacher. I believed I could be a high school teacher and I failed at it, so I became a college professor. It's a weird story. But I did take a couple of education classes and there were good people in there. It's another thing, but I think that when I say you can't teach someone how to teach, what I mean is that you can't tell them what to say in this environment.
I agree with that.
That a lot of teaching is figuring out how you are and figuring out your voice. And that to me is the same thing with comedy, right? Because the best ones are the ones that speak with their own voice. It's educated, it's informed, it's honed, but it's theirs. And so I think that sometimes when people go, here's how you teach or here's how you should run this, I don't do that because it doesn't make sense to me. Hey, shout out to you. Hey, all at once, what do you guys teach?
They can drop it in the chat.
That sounds wild.
We're monitoring the chat.
Sounds like you're doing a great job. Hey, what do you focus on? Okay, so let's move on. Now, here's what's weird about this job. A couple of things. Number one, the credentials for this career have nothing to do with being an effective educator at all. The large classes we teach are usually intro classes, so it's a weird position where we're not showcasing our academic scientific specialties. And what makes us successful is being good at something most of us were never taught to prioritize. That's a weird spot. On top of that, our students have been told, and this is one of the things, let's see if I can get this thing to work here. Say, wait, that didn't do it. This one. I'll use the keyboard. Will it work? Okay, cool. No, it won't. Let's see. Okay, cool. This is a different order. All right, so here's the thing. So when we walk in, we're already in that situation, right? But our students, when they come in, and you guys see this all the time, they come in with the story. It's like the meta story that you've heard. And I see this all the time. And the story goes like this, okay? At age 16 or 17, you are a disappointment unless you know exactly the career you want to pursue for the rest of your life and go to college to major in it. College equals classes, classes equal tests equals GPA equals net worth, and net worth equals success. Okay. You realize that net worth is just GPA for kids who never grew up? It'll never get high enough for you, I promise. Now, that's a story. And we got to consider the fact that, like, this is the story they're told. You hear the way that they're recruited, right? This is what they're told. I see it already. My son's 11 years old. They're piling tests on top of them. And it's all about, what are your test scores? What are your test scores? People come to me and they go, where's your kid going to college? I said to my wife, my wife's a professor here. Where's your son going to go to college? Michigan State or UCLA? I was like, that's a false dichotomy. I don't actually care if my son goes to college. What I care is that he works hard and he finds what he loves, and he becomes great at it and finds meaning in life. That's what I care about. But we're up against this story. I've had brilliant students in my classes who were doing incredible jobs they could have gone full-time at, who were told they can't drop out because their family will think they're a failure. And that's the ether we live in with a lot of these students. But here's the thing about that story. Well, it includes, let's just break down some of the characters in here. It includes students who only care about grades. It includes that GPA is a defining feature of one's life. Based on this, I also assume there's probably unicorns somewhere around there because this is complete fantasy. And finally, there's only one real villain in this whole story, which is adults who act like that fantasy isn't a fantasy. Because we all know it's a hoax. And yet they come into the classes and what we try to do is we try to tell them to learn. Now, I don't want you to just think about the grade, we just want you to learn. And that's great. But we're only asking them to cede ground and trust us without us being able to think about how we're ceding ground in that story. If we're not willing to take a step and break with what we're doing, then why should we trust that they actually trust us and go, all right, we'll try to learn it instead of focusing on the grades? And that's where we can take a step. That's the power that we have, that we can make difference. You got to meet your students halfway. Because while these things aren't real, there are some real things, right? The thing we have in common when we walk in there that we don't know, that we haven't said yet, is a silent part that we should say out loud, which is, look, we all know this doesn't work. They feel crushed. They feel like they don't have the right to actually sit and learn. We feel like we're crushed by the material. And if you continue to say, hey, I really want you to learn, but you focus on midterms and exams and assignments, and that becomes the focus, you're not meeting them halfway. My 2 rules for teaching, again, to go back to this, I'm sorry, I don't mean you can't teach them how to teach. 2 rules. And the number 1 is that you have to care about the people you're teaching. That is the first rule. You shouldn't be in there unless you're doing it. Number 2 is that you have to let them know that. And sometimes people think the first one is enough, but it's not. Because you can care all you want. As you guys know, if you've been in any long-term relationships, sometimes you're not conveying what you feel, and that can be a problem. So you have to figure out how to let them know. And this is where you guys are like, I thought you could do some stand-up stuff. I am. But I want to lay these groundworks first because this is where I'm coming from. You guys have been to a comedy show. Who's been to a comedy show? You guys been to comedy shows, right? Have you seen a big name, like a big famous comedian?
Who is it?
Sounds like not.
Craig Robinson and Zany's from The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Craig Robinson did the main room and then slipped over to the lab.
And then Wanda Sykes at the Ryman.
Wanda Sykes is amazing.
And Ian Bag at Zany's as well. So.
Oh, that's all. Wanda Sykes. Have you seen Pootie Tang?
No.
Oh, you got to see Pootie Tang. Anyway, that's a fantastic movie. Wanda Sykes, genius. All right, so when you went and saw him, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a host, isn't there?
Yeah.
Every show starts off with a host. Were you there to see a host?
No.
Exactly. Nobody ever is. When you host for those shows, you know that. They're all there to see the headliner. It starts with the host, and then it usually starts with a feature. He'll do 15 to 20 minutes. Have you ever been to like just a random lineup of comedians where you haven't heard of anybody? You've just been to a showcase? Okay. It works the exact same way. Both of those shows open up with a host. Why? And there's a trick that's going on here. There's a trick that's going on with stand-up comedy, and a reason that every show starts with a host, even if nobody's there to see them. It's because when people walk in a room, you're standing in front of a group of strangers who are seated in close proximity to one another, which is kind of an unusual thing in the world. To be packed into a place with a bunch of people you don't know, sitting almost shoulder to shoulder, that's a weird, kind of uncomfortable thing. That's why the host comes out. Because the host looks at that audience. They're going to need you to get comfortable because the headliner, the reason he has a host, is he needs you to sit there quietly and listen for his jokes to work. So if that's going to happen, you need to feel pretty comfortable being there. A host, and it's a very different thing, and this is why I'm starting off with this principle of stand-up comedy. Hosting is falling on a grenade. You walk out there, you figure out what's going to work, you tell jokes, you talk to people in the crowd, and then suddenly what you do by doing these things is you turn a group of strangers into an audience. Strangers don't know each other, or individuals sitting at tables. An audience is an organic thing that moves together. The reason that they always talk to people is because if you make a joke about something, everyone else laughs at that joke. What's a very intimate thing? An inside joke. You didn't know each other 10 minutes ago. Now you guys got a joke that's your joke. And you talk to people. What do? You make jokes about it, right? A good host is friendly. A good host tells you about themselves. If you notice, like every time a host starts, they don't walk out there and just be like, so anyway, yesterday they don't do that. No show starts with a comic that walks out there and just starts going, so, hey, I'm not going to, every joke that I thought to do right there was going to get me fired. So I'm not going to say that joke. But they don't just walk out there and start talking at you, right? They ask you about your day. How's it going? How's work? Hey, who is celebrating something good? Who's got bad news, right? Who's celebrating? That's your birthday over there. How old are you? Oh, it's a woman, can't ask. Who's from far away? Oh, yeah, where are you from? Iowa. All 6 of you? Yeah, okay, well, if you're here, who's defending the border? There's like 9 people left, right? You do stuff like that, and it's just dumb jokes, and they're not great jokes, and you're not going to use them in the set, but everyone starts laughing together. And what you're doing is you're showing that this is a room everyone is involved in. You're showing that you care about the people in front of you. And what you're saying to them is, I want you guys to move together. I want you guys to understand that we can see you up here. You're not independent. This isn't a TV show. You get them going, and with good interest, you thank everybody for being there. And then, and this is the art, you turn a group into an audience. And then you let them know it's time to be quiet so that the comics can come up and do the jokes. And that transition changes everything. And then in between comics, the host goes back up. You know what the host job is? The host job is to make everyone like them and get them on board up front. So if a comic goes up and has a bad set, you pop up there and go, oh, remember me? What's up with Iowa over there? Oh, you guys still, you do that and it brings everybody back in. In other words, it's this common ground, right? And you've got them on your side. You're not just doing jokes. The art is to bring them on your side. I am not fantastic at this. I promise you. I try and try and try and try. Some people are just natural at that. But these are the principles of it. And this, by the way, I should give a shout out. This idea of turning a group of strangers into a crowd, into an audience, that's actually the wisdom of Andrew Dorfman, who is one of the owners of Zany's Comedy Club, who teaches this to young comics. He's a genius at this stuff, and he knows how to do this. And so that wisdom came from me through a smarter person. You also need to get them to shake off what's going on in their life. Right? Everybody walks in there. Do you walk into a room? Do you guys walk into an apartment meeting? Do you ever walk in there and then suddenly you're like, okay, let's talk about this new hire? Or do you walk in there and you're like, oh, my wife was yelling at me all morning about this? You're like, you know what I'm saying? You guys, you carry that with you. You got to bring them in. You got to kind of get them focused, get everybody on board. I said most of those things right here. Yeah, it was all on the slide. Okay, I apologize. All right, I'm just running this through. All right, this is for me. I'm sure the 100th time I give this will not ever happen. So now, here are the lessons from stand-up. generally, because that's hosting. And I think that's everything. Key lessons from stand-up that I think are useful. This first one I think is really big. You never blame the audience. This is like one of the biggest rookie moves people make, and it's the biggest impediment to getting better at it. Comics who walk on stage, have a bad set, and then walk off convinced that the problem was the people in front of them. This is a terrible move. Now, secretly, I will tell you, I've been in front of some audiences that seemed like they had no clue why they were there. But I'll also tell you that it was my job to make them laugh, and I didn't. So whatever brought them in there, whatever problem it is, might be worth assessing in some way. But the question you should be asking is, why didn't I get them? Sure, they didn't laugh at the other 7 people on this show, but they also didn't laugh at me, and I'm the only one I can control. It's not their fault if they don't learn in the classroom. And the number of times that I hear people blaming the audience in this field is pretty high. You know, these kids just don't care about history. Word, really? That's surprising. I can't, dude, the people in front of you in a history class, they're like 18 or 19 years old, most of them. Most of them became sentient, like since what you think might be 4 or 5 years ago. They became sentient within the last 4 or 5 years. Since then, they've mostly been trying to get pizza and have sex. They're not caring about what happened in the 16th century. You can't blame them for it. So if they don't care about it, is it on them? I don't think so. I think it's on me. Nothing that I'm going to say in a classroom is revelatory in an intro level class. Everything I'm going to tell them doesn't belong to me. Everything is available to everybody. So the thing that I'm there to do is play the intermediary. If I'm blaming the audience, I'm copping out psychologically on myself. So you go home and you get better. And that's the thing about stand-up. You go home and you suffer with it. You have a bad set and you will hate yourself. So I invite you to take this lesson from stand-up. If your students aren't learning, okay, don't hate yourself. Get better at it, all right? Comedy is terrible. It's so horrible to stand on the barrel of your own failure. That's a big one. Second one, as I said, you got to get the audience on your side. Now, this is the thing. The reason people do crowd work is they're trying to figure out who's in front of them. This is a damn hard thing about doing clubs. Until someone knows who you are and is there to see you, which doesn't happen that often for me, you're in front of an audience of strangers. They really don't give a damn who you are. They don't know who you are. You've got to figure out who they are and figure out how to speak to them. And if you can figure out how to do that, you can have a good set. But if you're smart and you're in front of a group of audience, one of the reasons the hosts go up if you're doing a set is if you don't know who's in the room, you slip in the back and you watch the room respond to the host jokes. Now, you can't do that in your classroom, but what you can do is pull this principle. Read the crowd. Not every class is the same. Different classes have different interests. And if you want those inside jokes, you can't be pulling out how funny it is this one student hadn't showed up for 2 months in the next class and just tell them about it. You've got to read them. You've got to get to know them. You want to get the audience on your side. Not only are they dealing with the fact that they're sitting around strangers on the first day of class, they're dealing with a very real thing that they will continue to be sitting around those strangers for the last week of class. Their time when they care more than anything what everybody else thinks about them. They want to figure out if they belong somewhere. To this day, I hate it when I feel like I'm in a room where I'm not welcomed or not wanted. You know that feeling? Even the gray areas of that, maybe I'm wrong, feel terrible. Do you remember how much more you felt that when you were 18 or 19 years old? They're not grade producing mechanisms. I know that Middle Tennessee State University is the #1 producer of college graduates in this country, but they're not products. They're people. They're all different. Listen to them, man. Understand that they know what it feels like to be in a room they're not wanted in, and they're highly susceptible to believing that no one wants them in that room, and they also maybe feel like a fraud because they're not doing as well as they think they should be doing on the GPA, and make them feel like they're wanted. Talk to them, get to know them, do some crowd work, make some jokes with them, show them you care, show them they're welcome here, show them that you see them. Because if they're on your side, it works. This next point, going to the darkness of it. One thing you learn from stand-up comedy. Some days, you're going to go on stage and you're going to feel about 10 minutes in that there's nothing you can do to win this. There is absolutely no way out of this. but you're doing 18 and the headliner's not going to be ready to jump on stage. At this point, the trick is to just stare into the lights. You don't look at them. You don't look at their responses. You know what it is. You look up, you stare into the lights, and you perform like you're killing. Will it convince anyone out there? No. But it will make you continue to look like a comic until you get off stage. Backpedaling is not a good thing. I literally had a class last semester where it was a 55-minute class, and about 35 minutes into it, I was asking them questions. They didn't say anything. And I said, all right, hell with it. I'm a comic. I know how to do this. And I literally said it out loud. You just stare into the lights. And I looked behind them the rest of the class as I paced back and forth and lectured. And it freaked them out. And they never did that again. It was awesome. So sometimes you got to know. You can go home and figure out what you did wrong, but in the meantime, there's probably not going to be adjusting in the real time. Own up to it, learn from it long term. Here's another thing. Move with them, don't move against them. One of the things you also have to manage as a host, and this goes back to hosting, is people who want to talk while you're talking. See, sometimes that invitation to be like, hey, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. Leads to somebody else being like, she's a plumber and she's and they're talking to each other. And they're very drunk sometimes in our classes, also in comedy clubs. And you have to know how to like actually manage that. And sometimes I think like, again, trying to beat them halfway, they're used to people leaning on the authority and just being like, that's against the rules, don't do that. Dude, if you can figure out how to work with them and not against them, if you've got them on your side enough, you can actually get them to stop doing those things in a way that's almost like a fun diversion for everyone else. Right? Like one of my favorite things to do, I tell them on the first day of class, I go, look, no electronic devices in the class, no cell phones, all right? And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but I know how to do it. And you're going to do the thing where you slide back real slowly, you're paying attention, you drop your hands into your lap, you move your shoulder. But then the minute that you get your phone out, you lose it all. Your whole ruse is gone. And then you're just moving your hands around underneath your desk in your lap and staring at your crotch and smiling, which means the best thing you could possibly be doing is using your phone. I don't care what it is, I'm going to ask you to stop. Right? And then you're joking about it, right? And then if somebody does it again, right, you'll be like, no more cell phone. Sometimes you do have to get to that point. Some people won't hear you. But I'm just saying overall, dude, another thing about them is they're subject to peer pressure. One of the things I say is, what are you doing? You trying to get that red dragon? Trying to level up that dragon back there? What you doing down there? What you doing with your hand? You trying to, green dragon? And then they're like, well, that's not a thing. And then so it was weird, right? But it's a joke. And then you let them know you're on their side. I like to say to them, if a student starts to fall asleep, I go, hey, true or false? It's better to sleep in your bed than in my class. Right? True. True or false? It's better to be in my class than in your bed. Also true. So let's move on, right? And you can do these things in ways that you kind of get everybody to chuckle without making people feel uncomfortable. But if you turn against people, you're not going to win them back over. That may be a necessary requirement, as you do in a classroom where you have to tell somebody to leave, as they do in a comedy club where someone else comes and tells them to leave. But overall, the best way to get people on board is to actually show you care about them and get them on your side in the first place. Finally, laugh at yourself. Laugh at yourself, dude. Like, never let them think for a second that you're not a professional. But laugh at yourself, because as much of a professional as you are, you always make mistakes. One of my favorite things to do on the first day of class, and this is first day of class, by the way, it's called Welcome to History 2010 or 2020. But if you ask anybody, or anybody ever asked me, they go, hey, how was your first day of class? Are you getting ready for the first day of class? I always say the same thing. I go, day one's crowd work. It's literally what it is. Find out something interesting about somebody else. All right, and I ask them what's interesting. Okay, they tell me what it is. Best time I ever had for the worst class I ever had. I go 5 minutes of them talking to each other. I say to the crowd, I say to the audience, to the students, my bad. I go, hey, who has something interesting they want to share? They don't say anything. There's 85 people in this room. And I go, like, aren't you all human beings with 18 to 20 years of experience and hopes and dreams and faiths and things that matter to you, and yet nobody has anything interesting about them? Usually that gets them to chuckle, and then someone says something, not this class. And finally, I just said, all right, well, I'm just going to stand here until someone tells me something interesting. And after like 45 seconds, in the back of the room, finally, this guy throws up his hand and goes, she's from Nebraska. And I was like, oh my God, this is, and then it got worse though, because then across the room, another woman, girl raised her hand and goes, oh my God, she's from Nebraska too. And I was like, this is, so we're locked in with this, huh? I got 85 people with hopes and dreams in front of me. And the most interesting thing about them is that they're from the least interesting state. You know what I'm saying? Like things like that. And then you get them on board. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't always work the same for everybody, but you bring them in. You gotta laugh at yourself. Another thing I do on the first day of class, I show my first year community college transcript. I want them to know that none of them can possibly disappoint me. Because I was a horrible student when I was in their shoes. And of course I was. I didn't have a goal. I should have put it in here. My first year college transcript includes a list of the classes I took, one of which is history 2, class that I'm teaching right now. I got a D in history 2, my first year in college. And I just put it up there and I go, notice anything? And some of them are like, you got a W in a math class? And I'm like, well, yeah, I took a test and got a 0 on it, so I dropped it. Go on, keep going. And then they find it. And they're like, oh my God. And they look at me like, what? Why would you show us this? I said, why would I show you this? Like, I want you to see it. And some of you guys are probably thinking, oh, good, this guy don't know this stuff either. But that's not it. It's not why I'm showing it to you. I'm showing it to you because I used to have a D in history and now I've got a PhD in history. And of course I had a D in history. I didn't know what the hell was there. Was I failing? Yes, but not at life. I just had no reason why I should have to know this stuff. So if you're struggling with it, you don't know why you're here, come talk to me. Ain't nobody, you're not going to disappoint me. Let's figure out how you can be here. And things like that, right? Make fun of yourself. It's great. They love it. Sometimes I'll rate my professor reviews. I've got one that says, okay, first of all, he's hot in a dad kind of way, which is disturbing. I don't know if you think I'm hot or your dad's hot. I don't want to know either way. Another one I like is I have a slide on my first page. I'm a historian. It says I'm a historian. And they look at me like, obviously. And I go, no, I'm responding to the crowd. I once got a review on Rate My Professor that said, be careful, Dr. Sawyer's really passionate about history because he is a historian. And I was like, well, I never thought I needed to clarify that, but apparently someone in here signed up for it. And in week 4, he goes, wait, this guy's not a plumber. Like, what the hell's going on here? This guy's so into it. If I had known this guy wasn't a TV VCR repairman, I never would have taken the class. So you get people on there, you get them laughing, right? You build rapport. And the idea of all this is that when they walk away, they got something to talk about. Day 1, I seem insane. That's the goal. It's the goal. The goal is for them to walk out of there and be like, good Lord, did you see that? And have something to talk to a stranger about. Also, one of the slides I show is that I have a family. And I let them know. I show you that because I'm wondering if some of you wonder if anyone loves me. I can't confirm that, but I can say one is legally obligated to stay with me. I get to have her stuff. And the other one can't leave because he's 11. He's my property. The last one is if everybody sees something, you got to say something. Don't try to move on. This is when I learned hard. One time I messed up in a class and I was trying to cheer the student up who was in a very terrible mood. And I was just being so absurd with her, right? This happened to me one time in my life, right? And she goes, are we going to talk about the readings? And she said it real mean, right? And I'm like, well, I'm not coming back at you, mean, because you're having a bad day. Everybody's better than the worst day they ever had, right? So I try to get her to cheer up. I go, yeah. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about, don't you worry, we're going to talk about the readings. I mean, not because you said so, because I say so, because I'm a professor. And she goes, oh, can you not do that? And I go, oh, yeah, I cannot do that. Not because you told me to, though. I'm the professor. And I decide what happens in this class. And I'm looking at it with the dumbest look on my face. And she goes, can we move on? And I go, oh, yeah, we can move on. And everybody in the class was like laughing. I was just like trying to cheer up, right? Like obviously no real adult talks like this, right? And she picked up her book and she threw it to a wall and she stormed out. And I was like, all right, look, my first instinct was I care about the student. This is like the second week of class. Dude, I know what that is like if you're the person who got stared at by everybody else. So my instinct was, let's just move on. Let's just pretend like it didn't happen, right? I'm not going to act like I'm mad about it or anything, right? But this is something that I later on realized from stand-up comedy. If something happens, if a glass drops, if somebody's talking in the back, like if something weird happens, right? You got to acknowledge everybody saw it. You've got to acknowledge it. Trying to move on past it isn't going to work necessarily. So it's worth acknowledging. In this case, I tried to do both hands of it. And what I said to my students is what I just said right now. I said, look, somebody's having a hard day. I messed up. I shouldn't I should have been pushing that person. I think you all saw that I was trying to make that person have a better day. I failed at it. And yeah, maybe we're looking at it and we're seeing that she overreacted. She hurled a giant book against the wall and stormed out. But look, everybody has a bad day sometimes. And everybody's better than the worst day they've ever had. So when that student comes back, we give her the bad day and we just move on and we're glad to have her back. But I tried to teach for a while and I said, do we need to address this? And they go, yeah. And then I could still say they were riled up. So I said, you'll have to forgive me. Not the first time a woman's thrown some shit at the wall and then stormed out. And that made them laugh. We moved on. But yeah, you got those failure moments, man. But when you see them, you got to acknowledge them. You got to acknowledge when you fail too, like in that case. I start off every single class that I teach like this. Welcome to History 2020. I'm Dr. Sawyer. I'll be a professor for today and hopefully for the rest of the semester. Every single class, they will hear that in their nightmares till they die. Then I ask who's got a question, then I ask who's got good news. Every single time. And asking who has good news is an opportunity for a few minutes of crowd work when it starts off. Again, to get the stress off their shoulders like a host does, to bring them in, to remind them they're an audience, to get some more material for inside jokes, to let this character over here who likes being a character develop himself for the rest of the audience so we can all talk about it. I have always done this. Honestly, this is something that I honed in stand-up comedy. It's something I learned at church. And people ask, who's got good news? It's a great thing because you get to hear what people are doing. You find out what people are doing. You can collaborate with them. I think this lost art of the fact that we are a hill-building community has been shoveled underground and suffocated by the idea that we're all here to get points to be able to go get a career. What matters here is a community. And this is back to what I'm saying, that we're trying to turn our classroom into a community. And that's why hosting is useful for it, because that's everything about hosting. So ask them who's got good news. And it's awesome. And I've had my second year here, I was reviewed by a fellow professor who told me I wasted too much time. And I was like, hey, you see that as wasting time, dude. They got to be in this class and they don't know why. Right? I don't teach history majors. They don't know why they need to be in this class. So maybe you can try to explain that to them, but they're only going to understand that or be willing to listen to that if you actually listen to them and understand that they don't know why they're there. So you get to know them. And you might not ever be able to get them interested in your topic, but you can create a place where they feel like they belong and they know they're wanted. And I have found that the number of people who have come to me after all this have said to me, you know, I didn't think I liked history that much, but I really enjoyed this class, which always catches me because I'm like, you didn't say you liked history in the end, but I appreciate you liking the class. It's the low expectations. It only makes me stronger. They came into class thinking it was going to be the worst class they ever had. And they left, it was just the third worst class they ever had. So I'm crushing. And that's about what I've got to say about that. There's so much, but I just want to leave off with this. We've forgotten about community. We've forgotten that the thing that distinguishes us from any other place in the world is not like we don't own the information. They could get the information somewhere else. What we value, what we should be selling them on, not even selling them on, we should be cultivating them as a community and reminding them that they're not in a room with a group of strangers, that we're a part of a community. And the quicker you can make that happen, the better. That was my closer. Thank you guys. Have a great night. I'll be here all week.
Thank you, Dr. Sawyer, for presenting on crowd work and bringing levity to what we do and reminding us at the end of the day, it is about people and about building community, which I think sometimes we can get lost in our content and trying to drive home our learning outcomes and assessments and all the things we do. Thank you for joining us in person and to the Zoom room. And we will have 2 more large class playbook sessions this academic year in March and April. So we hope to see you for both of those. Thanks, everybody.